Before Mullah Nasruddin became a Sufi, every day he would go to the Grand Mosque to pray. But his prayers were never answered. So one day he was complaining about this to his friends at the coffee shop. And one of his friends said, "Why don't you go to the house of the Sufi Sheikh Khan? He's got a little room at the back of his house called a tekia where you can pray." So Mullah Nasruddin did just that. And the very next day, his prayer was answered. So he marched off to the Grand Mosque with his hands on his hips, and he said, "How come a little mosquette called a tekia can do things that you can't do?" And there's a Sufi story that has many versions in different persuasions. It's about that king who was a good enough king. He served his people very well, but he was bound by the knowledge that he'd gained and his beliefs. One day he called his 3 beautiful daughters to him, and he said to them, "You know that your fate, your destiny is in my hands. Your inheritance and all that you do is bound by what I say. My will rules, as it does with all the people of this land. Don't you agree with me?" And 2 of his daughters agreed and said, "Yes, Father, you reign supreme. Your law rules. We are bound by what you say. Our fate is in your hands." But the 3rd daughter said, "Father, I cannot accept that this is so." And the father, the king, got very, very angry. "How dare you go against my word? My word is law." So he had her taken off to a deep cell in the dungeon under the floors of his palace. And he said, "Let's see if you will change your thinking after spending time in this solitary place." Well, quite a long time went past, and the king would go down to the dungeon to check on his daughter from time to time, and even though she became somewhat weak and pale, she did not relent from what she had said to him. Well, of course, the people at large had taken the words of the king as law, and amongst themselves they said, "Oh, well, the princess must have done something very bad for her father to treat her like that." But when he went down to her on an occasion and she was again unrelenting, he said to her, "Well, this does not bode well for the people. You're undermining my authority, so I'm going to send you out into exile, into the forest with the wild animals and those miscreants and misfits who do not fit into this society and my laws." So the princess was taken out into the far, far, deep, deep jungle wilderness, a far cry from the comforts of the palace and being waited on hand and foot, even though she'd spent so much time solitary. But then, after a very short while, she found that a cave brought a comfort for her, where she could find shelter. and that the seasons brought around a flowing stream, and berries on the trees, and roots, edible roots to be found. And she found that there was a harmony, a cooperation, a synchronicity, a wholeness here, and she became very content. But after some while, a rich merchant rode into the forest. Now it so happened that his travels and his experiences had brought some insight and wisdom and perception, and he was immediately smitten, not only by the princess's physical beauty, but by her demeanor, calm, peaceful, harmonious, and of course they fell in love. So he took her back to his place of residence, and they were wed, happily wed. But between them, they decided that they would return to the wilderness, return to the forest. And this they did. And not surprisingly, there were those who gathered around them, drawn by what it was that they had. And soon a flourishing community. In fact, it grew into a place where it became renowned in far-flung places. And of course, this came to the ears of the princess's father, the king. And after some time, his curiosity got the best of him, and he had to go and see this place. And so he did. And when he did, and was brought into the aegis of the harmony, peacefulness, cooperation that was there, palpable, and he was brought into the presence of they who had become what it seemed to be the center of this place. And to his very great surprise, he was greeted warmly by none other than his wayward daughter. In opening her arms to him, she said to him, "You see, Father?" What is it that this being said to her father, the king? "You see, Father?" How would you finish this sentence? What is it we've discovered?
Kind of like she must have said something like, because I stayed true to myself, I survived.
Right.
Yes. Domination is not the way.
No.
She said you see cooperation, harmony.
Yes. How would we translate that into our own life now? This harmony, cooperation. What is it about us, not only that allows us to be aware of it, but also to be able to verbalize it? by completing this sentence, you see further.
It's not our will.
It's not our will. It's not our will. Because its will is related to mind, isn't it? So when we don't have that will anymore, what is it that's there that enables us to complete this sentence?
It's embracing everything else that is there.
Right.
When we're hooked in the mind, then we only see a narrow path.
Yes. It's got to be a knowledge or a truth or a learning or, isn't it? A belief. Where are we when we don't have those anymore?
We're free.
We're free. Indeed. But our challenge is, and this is why it's laboured again and again, to verbalize, to acknowledge, to accept the unknowable or the inexpressible, and then it becomes knowable and expressible. Isn't it so? Because then we're in a place, whatever comes out of our mouth is an absolute truth. Whatever deed we do is a definitive and in harmony with all things and life. So this is continued to be laboured. Just like it's verbalized, you have to know who you are. You have to know what you do.